Number one, are all natural disasters the judgment of God? Well, in Joel's day, the locust invasion was God's judgment against Judah for breaking their covenant with God, right? And there are other times in Scripture when God sends disasters on people as a judgment against them. The worldwide flood would be a great example of that. A natural thing that destroyed the world. But what about so-called natural disasters that we see today? So you see in the southern U.S., they have those tornadoes wrecking towns. If you were here in 1997, you recall the flood of the century. Other places that have hurricanes. I remember Japan about 15 years ago had that tsunami. Even the fires we see happening just north of us. Are those natural disasters actually the judgment of God on those towns and on those people? Well, we know for sure that God allows them to happen. Nothing happens outside of God's will. So it's not like these are accidents that God sort of missed. But we need to be careful, I think, that we don't point the finger at people who are suffering and say that God is judging them, because we don't actually know that, do we? I want you to think about Job's life. This was the exact thing that happened in Job. Of course, you know there was that conversation with God and Satan, but from Job's perspective, there was a point where a great wind blew his house down and killed all of his children. A natural disaster from his perspective. Was that the judgment of God on Job and his family? Well, we actually learn from the book of Job that it was not a judgment. It was something that God allowed Satan to do to test him. We don't exactly know why or all the details. And it was actually Job's friends who come in, look at Job in the eye during his suffering, after he's just lost his kids and all of his income and his physical health, and they say, Job, I've been reading this with Caleb in the evenings. Great to read with a 6-year-old, but it's been going fine. Okay? But his friends look at him and say, this is happening because you sinned. You must have a secret sin somewhere you haven't dealt with, because God doesn't let people suffer who haven't sinned. And the whole point of the book of Job is that people do suffer for reasons we don't understand. Right? You guys have read the book of Job. You're familiar with it. That's the whole argument in Job, that Job didn't deserve what had happened to him, and that it happened for reasons that God doesn't fully explain. And so when disasters strike, don't be like Job's friends. Don't point the finger. Instead, love people, be compassionate, be an encouragement.